Minister, 21 years ago, is it or more now, that we had the Hederman report in regard to the Offences Against the State Act, and much of its recommendations are similar to the report that we have before us in the last week. And I was just thinking about it. We seem to have a situation in Ireland where we generate reports continually and not implement them or not do much about them. And I think that needs to change, and needs to change quickly. The concept and why that report came out 21 years ago is because it was written into the Good Friday Agreement that emergency legislation related to the conflict north and south would be examined and reviewed, and where possible rescinded, because it was considered to be conflict-related legislation. Now I accept, and we have all accepted, that there are aspects of it which have been used, and is primarily used at the moment, in regard to the very violent criminal gangs which mainly plague our communities with drugs and violence and all of that. And they have, a huge power and a huge network, and many of them are international. And we, of course, have to have 21st century legislation to deal with that, and firm legislation to protect communities and protect people out there, and to protect jurors and protect witnesses and protect everybody else involved in the system, and Gardaí and everyone that's part of all of that. And we want to see that put in place. And we want to build consensus with you and everyone in the House to do so. And that is why we accept what is in this report, coming from the experts, which was appointed, in fairness, by your predecessor, Charlie Flanagan. And I remember in 2020, when after the election, I spoke to the then Minister Flanagan around this, and initially he was resistant to have a review because he felt it would be conceding that there was something wrong with the legislation, and he didn't want to do that. But eventually he came around and said, OK, he'd established the review, and he's to be commended for that. And the review, and because it was always our view, and I think the view of most people in opposition, that if there was a reasonable examination of this legislation, that the issues that we have been raising on this side of the House for decades would be seen to be a problem. That the idea of having recourse to non-jury courts on a continual basis was something that needed to be re-examined and shouldn't happen. That other aspects of it, for instance, the aspects of it in regard to for instance, the evidence of a senior Garda, the other aspects in regard to how the whole system works, how the referral indeed to the Special Criminal Court works, that all of those things would be seen that they didn't fit, they didn't work. They were getting criticism internationally from organisations like the United Nations, from organisations like Amnesty International, other organisations on this island. Everyone recognised that there was a problem here. And I think, we now have it in a report by a group of people who have studied the facts, and they have made proposals. And what we want to do is build consensus with everyone to implement those proposals, and implement them with speed. Because we don't want to be back here next year, the year after, and the year after, doing the same thing over and over again. Implementing emergency legislation on an annual basis for decades does not make it emergency legislation. And I think we need to recognise that. So what we want to do is build consensus, and if we can build that consensus, we will support that consensus. And I'm disappointed, Minister, that you're saying that the government is not going to support the amendment that we put in place, because the amendment is simply saying that we should implement the report, a report with the conclusions that set out much of the issues that we have had fraught debates about over the years, but are sensible recommendations, and are recommendations that will actually benefit our criminal justice system in the long run. And I think you of all people should recognise that and understand that. Because I don't think, in 2023 we are in 1998 or 1978. We're in a different world, we're in a different Ireland, and we need to recognise that. But we also, of course, have new challenges, and those challenges mainly come, as I say, from criminal gangs who are scourging our communities, and we have to have firm legislation for that, and we will have firm legislation for that, and we are committed to deliver that kind of legislation. But we are also committed to ensure that we have the apparatus to be able to deal with these people. We need to ensure that our Garda is strong enough, that our court system is efficient and effective, that our prison system is adequate to deal with it. None of those things are adequate right now to deal with it. And you have to take responsibility for that as well. So, I don't want to be critical of government, but I want to ensure that we can deliver, that we can work together, that we can find a consensus, that we can support that consensus, and that we can deliver something for everyone. Because it is important, vitally important, that we have legislation that does not meet the wrath of international and national organisations of high repute. And we want to make sure that that doesn't happen. And that has been happening in the past. So, Minister, this is an opportunity to move away from that. And the recommendations of this report, if they are implemented and when they are implemented, because certainly if we are in government we will be implementing them, And I would hope that they will be implemented long before that and that we can build consensus to do so. So, Minister, I would ask you to reconsider your position in regard to the amendment we put down. It's put down in good faith to try and build consensus, to try and move this situation forward and get away from this annual circus that we have every year.
Thank you, Deputy.